Hi, this is Dr. Randy Hurst. This segment is on formal interventions. Am I a fan? Yes and no. They have tremendous potential power. The trouble is they have tremendous power for good as well as not so good. They can cause problems if the intervention fragments or is so overwhelming that a person gives in. Now, okay, let's start. I guess let's back up for a second and go, what do I mean by an intervention? Well, there are interventionists. There are these formal interventions where friends and family of somebody with an alcohol or drug problem get together. These can be co-workers, friends, a lot of times family members, where they get together and, in one sense, try to convince the person to get that they have an alcohol or a drug problem, and the focus typically is getting people to treatment. I have seen these things last hours. I guess I shouldn't say I have seen. I know of these interventions lasting long term. Had a boss once who would lead them, and they would just last interminably and sometimes blow up because the person got angry, or many times the person just gave in. Giving in to the need for treatment as a treatment provider is problematic. I mean, the hope is that being around people, other people that are similar, hearing things that had happened in their lives that the person identifies with, that they'll get it and really admit to that they have a problem and commit to changes. And I would see that for sure. There's some issues with that as well, but what would happen is people would put in their time for their family, and they didn't always commit to the need for change. They would admit, but commit and admit are different, and so sometimes they were just putting in time to try to keep peace, or to try to keep a marriage together, try to keep a job. Not always fully inside themselves, really believing there's a problem. There have been some that have blown up into lawsuits against the interventionist or the family, especially when there's a lot of coercive control perceived. So how to make an intervention productive? Now, I can say what I did, and I found it to be productive. I can't say it's the be-all and end-all. I would meet with family members, as would any interventionist. I would meet with family members in advance, often more than a couple of times. In that time, I would describe the process and describe what I felt was important for people to do and to prepare for both the good and the bad of it. So one form of preparation was to have people write to the person. This became kind of the script. And in fact, I would tell people I didn't want them to go off script. I didn't want them to get caught up in the emotion of the moment, go off script, and become judgmental, demanding, overwhelm themselves, and overwhelming the situation. So one is I would have them write, and the key to what they wrote would be very specific instances, things that had happened that caused them the hurt or the fear or the sense that there's a problem here. To describe what happened and how they felt, maybe how they saw in the other person in terms of behavior, their own the other person's reactions, and the impact on the person or on other loved ones immediately. The key to this is a very specific behavioral and evocative. They evoke a feeling within the person remembering it, and the hope is they'll evoke a sadness, a recognition, a sadness, a sense of empathy for the person talking, as well as a recognition this must mean there's a problem. So I would have them write 3, 4, 5 specifics, the kind of signal specifics that would show why this family member or friend feels there's a problem. The focus, though, is on the caring for the person they're talking to, the person with the problem. Their recognition that something's out of control, and it's their behavior, but it's not them. This is about loving the person, not the behavior. This is about recognizing something's out of control here. And then, kind of as a last part, is, well, what will the person's boundaries be? What will the person do in loving the individual, in getting treatment, but also in what ways might they set up boundaries so those hurts don't happen again? Let's say in terms of borrowing money or helping them out and getting them out of jail, paying a fine, giving them a loan. The kinds of things that friends and family may have done to try to help that ended up not helping. And their understanding of why it wouldn't help in terms of this disease concept, this idea that there's something that's not them, there's something bigger than them. Now, another piece to this is how to get the people in the intervention to work together. So their boundaries, their messages are similar, but their boundaries are similar too. So, and that they will be united. And that's the question for the interveners, is can you be united in your boundary setting? Can you be united in your loving and feedback and boundary setting? Because if there's a crack in that unanimity, the person will find the crack. If the person can use emotional blackmail, come back to them and split the group, then that will happen. That's the monster that I talk about in monster making. And I just urge people to really make this 90% about an expression of love, but feedback about behavior. Even if feedback about behavior is more content than in the letter. One key to the letter is that it's also about the emotion of the moment of what's going on can overwhelm the person, and they'll only remember parts. Often they'll only remember the negatives, but the letter then can go with them. So the letter, if they want to keep a copy themselves, that's great, but a copy of the letter goes to the person. And there's one of the struggles is whether the person will follow through. The best option is if there's actually a bed in treatment ready and available. I remember a particular situation in which that didn't happen for me, and the person promised to go if he couldn't stay sober. Well, he didn't stay sober for 12 hours, which was, given his history, was expected. He didn't expect it. He knew he was going to be okay. And but these can be emotional crises. In fact, that particular situation was one in which the person started calling friends essentially all over the world and saying goodbye. And they all thought he was committing suicide. In following up to try to find out what was going on and if this was a crisis, what I found out was that he was saying goodbye as a drinker. And he really did commit once he really knew he couldn't stay clean no matter what his promise was, no matter what commitment he had without some extra help. Okay, big thing, 90% about love, very specific behavioral confrontation or feedback, unanimity as much as possible among the interveners, good boundaries, and follow through. And hopefully it can be a good situation that doesn't last an interminable time until people give in. Share this with people who might want to do an intervention. See if you really can get together, decide whether to have a formal professional helping or whether you can do it themselves. But either way, this can help with the professional if people already have a leg up on what to do and understand why. Okay, hope this helps, and I'll see you in another one.